Tom Bosworth from Politics 2.0, please hold your applause till the end. Indiana STALKS from OutspeakIncognita. Christopher Glove, reporter with the Incognitian. RHONA, political editor with the Eon. And Adriana DITA, shadow artist for small business spokeswoman. Please welcome our guests. Now we've had a few questions put up on our Facebook page, and the first one is from I'm going to do it this way. Our first one is from Ali O'Sullivan, whose question is for the Minister of Defence, David TOOTALL. The PM told us earlier in the week that one of the aims of the renamed Citizen Card is to streamline immigration procedures and keep track of immigration applications. How will this be possible when it appears that the Citizen Card will only be issued to Incognitan citizens in the first place?
Well, I wasn't made aware of that statement. As we've said, the Citizen Card is just for citizens of Incognita. On our end of immigration, maybe perhaps once the people immigrating into Incognita have been made citizens, then that side of the system would be much more streamlined, as they would then be in possession of the IID card. But as for the beginning of the immigration process, I do not believe that would change, but you would need to ask the PM.
Roger Jones.
On the same question?
Yeah.
I think that just goes to show that how much harder it is to be in the government, because you say one thing that has impacts on this, and this, and they kind of just came in here with these new cards, not really fully thinking it out, and they're kind of on the fly selling it now. It's not really coherent as they'd like it to be. So just from a journalist's point of view, haven't really done the background research required to have a good coherent policy, and it's kind of showing now.
Christopher Glove, do you agree? Do you think that this is policy on the run from the government?
Yeah. This is definitely another example of poorly thought out policy from the URP government. They brought this policy out, and before it was actually officially announced, it was widely panned across the media, and then they attempted to, in a very kind of facile way, reverse the negative slide by calling it the Citizen Card and saying it's going to be very good for immigration. But obviously they shot themselves in the foot, because the Citizen Card can't help us fight illegal immigrants because it's only for citizens. So really they're only targeting their own citizens. And is the David in fact a citizen?
We might actually get to that one in a sec. Hold on to that.
Can I just say that the policies have changed? So from our initial, obviously as you said, the original policy was to include a greater ID card, and now that it is just a citizen's card, the policies have changed. And obviously we've released more and more information, and we're still doing trials, we're still releasing information, and so that's the line we're taking, is the citizen card, which is why it is no longer as relevant to immigration as originally planned.
What will it be next week?
Well, you have to
It's changing every week.
Adriana DITA, you're the opposition's small business and arts spokesperson. What is the opposition's, I suppose, position on these? I mean, we get the impression from their public addresses that they're against both of them, but how credible is the alternative? What is, I suppose, in summary from today, the alternative that's being proposed?
Well, I think firstly we need to address the government's policies and sort of the lack of research that's gone into those. During our research at POLO, we've sort of tried to draw some comparisons with situations which have happened in other countries. And I think that everyone would agree that Incognita shares significant similarities with Australia. In the 1980s, there was an Australian card proposed, and the card's architect, this was proposed by the Hawke government, the the card architect, the Health Insurance Commission, came out saying with this Australia card that it will be important to minimise any adverse public reaction to implementation of the system. One possibility would be to use a staged approach for implementation, whereby only less sensitive data are held in the system initially, with the facility to input additional data at a later stage when public acceptance may be forthcoming more readily. And I think this is really something that we should be concerned about. And this is actually a policy that has come out. It's a leak from this commission, and that's what they plan to do with the citizen card. Along with that, estimates by the London School of Economics for the suggested ID card in the UK propose that the cost of the ID card would be 30 times more per year than the proposed savings from those things that it was meant to target, for example, identity fraud. So I think that the card definitely has more negatives than positives, and I think that it's basically just unnecessary and it doesn't combat what it's supposed to combat, just from these simple figures. So I think that, and in terms of wireless city, I was pretty shocked by the art minister's comment saying that Slowtown was a cultural dead end, and the ridiculous claims that by creating a database that artists would flock to the city. I think that there's just no basis for those comments, and I think that making the whole nation connected wirelessly is much more important than creating a database online for the information on the city to be collated, which can already be done anyway. I hope that answers your question.
Can I just comment on that? As we said before, all the information that will be on the IID cards is already available, except for the coded information to police. But all information from Medikind and Centrelink and all of those government public sector information is already either available to the individual or available to the public through FOI. So as far as sensitive material goes, it will not be anything that's not already available.
Alright, we have two people from the blogosphere, and I can remind you that the audience is allowed to ask questions, so if you just put up your hand, we'll get to you shortly. We have two people from the blogosphere. You've heard both of the arguments from the government and from the opposition. What are your thoughts as public citizens in terms of the direction that both parties are taking? Maybe you can say who you are as well.
Well, I'm Tom Bosworth. I disagree with the URP's policies, the digital policies. I don't think they've been thought through enough. They're very rushed. I think there are far too many risks with the ID card. With new technologies, I mean, it's great to be on the forefront of technological advancements, but there's too many risks. They're going to get hacked, and as like the opposition leader said, it's putting all our eggs in one basket. I don't think that's a good thing. As for the wireless city, again, I think it's a waste of taxpayers' money, and it could be better spent on things like health and the new sports stadium. As for POLO's policy, I don't think we have enough information yet, but it sounds pretty good. I mean, extending the wireless network to regional areas is definitely for the better, I think.
I'm Indiana Stalks. My blog is OutspeakIncognita. I guess the URP's ID card is still a bit shaky, it seems. They don't really know what they're planning. First, the government say that they're not going to track sort of negative media and stuff, and then the Greens leader comes out and says that they are considering tracking bloggers and negative media. So how do we know what they're going to be doing? Like the example said, they might have a little limited information on them and then add more info later. So what are they really going to be doing, and how do we know what we're going to be sort of tracked on? So I guess I'm against the ID card because we still really don't have enough information to know what might happen in the future. And then the wireless city, I agree. I think the information, the money could be better spent on like the stadium or a healthcare facility for our ageing population, which is much more important than maybe technology, which is maybe better developed by private enterprise and that sort of thing.